Okay, hey, we're back here. We're looking at the Boston Tea Party, which is going to be um, one of the last causes before we're going to actually go to war. So, we're going to be taking a look today on our lecture from slides 25 through 45, and we're going to be explaining what's going to happen after the Intolerable Acts and how we're going to have two battles, Lexington and Concord. But before we get there, let's do a quick little review here. We left off with the colonists, the Patriots, and the Sons of Liberty saying, you know what, this Tea Act of 1773, where we're being forced to buy your tea, it isn't working for us. So the very thing that the economist from Parliament was trying to do was saying, hey, we're going to take the tax away from the tea, but we're gonna have only our company sell tea over to the colonists. Actually ended up backfiring on them. Even though the tea was cheaper than what they had been paying for, the colonists went, no, we're just not going to buy from you. So they end up having this Boston Tea Party, where we've kind of talked about this before, of Samuel Adams and the Patriots disguise themselves up as Indians. They go out on these merchant ships and throw Boston tea, or the tea packets from the ships into the harbor. Well, this is going to infuriate the mother country. England is not going to tolerate that kind of action, and nor would you have probably any imperialistic country of any time. You have to control your colonies, and this is just flying in the face of British rule. So we have the Intolerable Acts of 1774, where the Parliament and the British government will punish the Patriots, and specifically Boston. They're going to close the harbor, and they're going to stop all self-government. So the whole Massachusetts legislature that was being allowed to be put in place by Britain is going to be absolved, and they're going to bring over another, I believe, 12,000 troops, and they're going to put those troops into Boston, and they're going to close the entire city of Boston down. This is going to be just the opposite of what the colonists and the Patriots felt was going to happen. They're going to be appalled, and they're going to set up the First Continental Congress, and that group of men is going to decide, what are we going to do now? What exactly is our action? So what was the First Continental Congress looking at, and who represented it? Before we get to that, though, I just want to take an overview of what we're looking at as far as the people that were involved in the Revolutionary War and in the colonies. You had about 1/5 of the colonists considered themselves loyalists. Those were people who felt that the British laws must be obeyed. A great many of those are going to be living in the South. They're going to be very rich plantation owners. They're making a lot of money selling cotton and tobacco, and they're more than willing to go along with the British rule. About 2/5 of the colonists are going to be the moderates, who kind of in general, they want America and Britain to resolve their differences. They just want to live in peace. They're not looking to break away from Britain. But they also have some frustrations. So they're riding in the middle. They're kind of the lukewarm group, but they're not looking for having independence. And then that's going to leave you with about another group that's going to be the Patriots. And so let's just put it in this perspective. If you got 100%, you got 40% of them are neutral. They don't really care. 40% are Patriots. Let's go to war. Let's get this thing going. And then 20% of them are going to be the loyalists. Now, to go along with the loyalists, you're going to have the British themselves there. But that's the makeup of the colonists, of about 1 million, a little over 1 million people in 1775. So the First Continental Congress will come together, and they'll meet in Philadelphia, where 55 gentlemen from all across the different colonies, every one of them are represented except Georgia. Georgia doesn't go. Georgia says, no, I'm gonna hold on this one, guys. And again, The likelihood of Georgia holding is because you have a great many plantation owners down there that are going to lose a lot of money if they go to this thing. But the other 12 colonies all are represented, and they're going to give solutions as to what are we going to do with Britain. Some of the people that attended from Massachusetts was Samuel Adams and John Adams. New York had John Jay. Virginia will have Patrick Henry and George Washington. And one of the things you see here, Patrick Henry, who's going to be extremely active in the Revolutionary War, said the distinctions between Virginians and Pennsylvanians, New Yorkers and New Englanders are no more. I am not a Virginian, but an American. So on July 9th of 1776, the Declaration of Independence will be read for the very first time in front of George Washington and his troops. And we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but the reaction that you get from that is this idea that we're not going to tolerate the king anymore. And they're gonna really step out, and they're gonna get into a mob mentality, and they're gonna pull the statue down. Most times that's not something that goes over well. So that's going to be, again, the decision of doing this is going to lead to a very, very frustrated and angry British Parliament. What are some of the decisions that the First Continental Congress makes? Well, it writes up a set of grievances and that repealed these acts, these intolerable acts by Parliament. And they said that they violated the colonists' rights. Now, again, today when we start talking about rights and being represented, that may be something that you're familiar with. But in colonial times, it just didn't happen that the rule body questioned the rulers. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to boycott all and any British goods. So the colonies are going to say enough is enough, and we're going to hit the British in the pocketbooks. Remember, Britain was involved in this whole thing from the very beginning because they needed to pay back the debt they'd incurred from the French and Indian Wars. Well, if you're not buying any products, you make it where the British have to then find other ways to pay for that debt. And the more actions the British take against the colonists by enforcing taxes, it will happen that the colonists will respond just the opposite, and they'll pay less and less by smuggling or by making their own products, and the British will receive less and less in taxes, and that's going to cause them to be frustrated. So let's take a look at who's in this whole thing. You have the British, and the British are going to be a group of soldiers that are the best trained, best equipped military in the world. And they're going to have an outfit, and they're going to be wearing the red jackets, so they earn the nickname of the Redcoats. And they are an absolute formidable fighting force. To say that you were looking forward to going up against the British Empire and the Queen, that was suicide in most people's eyes. On the other side, you have the colonial patriots, and they're made up of a citizens' army. These are everyday common folks. These are the craftsmen, the farmers. These are shipbuilders. These aren't military men. They don't have a clue one. Yes, they know how to fire their weapon, and some of them may have served at some point in time. But overall, a citizens' army going up against the most powerful army in the world, that probably is going to not bow well. One of the things that the colonists and the Sons of Liberty came up with was with the nickname of the Minutemen. And the Minutemen were this group of Bostonians who were able to arrive and take up arms at a moment's notice, and so that's how they get that nickname, the Minutemen. So there's what you got. You got the colonial militia versus the British Army. It's Rocky Balboa versus Apollo Creed. From the colonist viewpoint, you've got two. You've got the patriots who wanted to fight for their independence from the king. They're tired of having the king dictate to them how they're going to live. On the opposite side, you have the loyalists. And the loyalists They're loyal to the king and to the mother country. The Sons of Liberty, remember, they were a patriotic group that was led by Samuel Adams. Remember the video we watched on Samuel Adams and Paul Revere shows that Sam Adams is the guy that's going to be the architect behind getting this rebellion to actually have legs and start moving. John Hancock is an extremely wealthy merchant that lives in Boston that's going to fund a great deal of the war out of his pocket. They were both involved in the Boston Tea Party. If you saw in the video as we were watching it, you saw these marchers going down with these liberty poles that had pictures of the British tax collectors on them, and they be mocked and berated, and they hated those guys because these are the guys that are overtaxing and they're abusing their powers against the colonists. They tar and feather, and the one gentleman that they do this in Boston is going to die. Again, that's going to be reported back, and the British will take action against us. So let's get to the start of the war. There's two battles, the battles of Lexington and Concord, and they're going to be in 1775. And the British are in Boston's harbor, and both Lexington and Concord are on the outskirts of Boston. And the British will say enough is enough, and they're going to go after the militia supplies that they've been told are stored in Concord, and they're going to go get these people that are behind this ruckus, which is Samuel Adams and John Hancock. But remember, in the video, we have a group of spies that are recording everything and reporting back what the British are doing. And these guys are going to alert the militia of what the British are going to do, and we're going to end up having a much bigger battle than one would have thought would have happened. So as the British are moving out of Boston, we end up having these messengers come about to warn the upcoming assault that's going to happen to the colonists. There's three men that serve as messengers. They're going to get on a horse and they're going to ride as fast as they possibly can. The three men, Paul Revere, which I think most of us are aware of, in the famous "The British are coming, the British are coming," William Dawes and Sam Prescott. They rode throughout the towns announcing, "Hey, we've got a fight coming right now, guys. Get ready." And so the militia, the people, the townsfolk, the farmers, and those guys are going to leave their jobs, and they're going to report to the militia to defend the causes of protecting our arms that we've got both in Lexington and Concord. So the Battle of Lexington, as you can kind of see on this map, and I don't know how well you can see it, but the Boston Harbor and that, and where we're going to have to go out to get to Lexington and Concord to seize these guns and that, and stop this war before it ever happens, and to capture, according to what the British felt, were the leaders, and probably correctly so, the leaders of this rebellion in Samuel Adams and John Hancock. So the British do what they do. They march and they take off, and they believe they're going to surprise the British or the Patriots, but they're in for a confrontation. The militia have gathered because of Revere and his other two cohorts, and they have got together and they're waiting and for an ambush in Lexington. The Americans are told, do not fire. Do not fire unless you are fired upon, because once the first shot's going to be lobbied, we're up against the world's most stout and best equipped army there is, and it's all cards on the table then. But there's going to be a shot fired. And who ends up firing the first shot? Nobody's going to know for sure. But in the very first little bit, we lose 8 Minutemen. They're dead, and the British are moving forward. When they go to Concord, the British arrive just outside of Concord where they're ambushed. The militia now have got all of their forces together, and they're going to return favor against the British. At the end of the day, it's going to report in the papers that both Lexington and Concord are going to fall to the British. It's going to be a defeat for both, both spots for the Patriots. The Patriots are going to have 49 killed, 39 wounded, and 5 will be missing in action. A sizable amount. But as you read a little bit farther down into the Sons of Liberty report, there was 73 British soldiers killed, 174 wounded, and 26 missing. So though you lose the ultimate battle, the Patriots show we can hold our own. And I believe Rocky Balboa just landed a big laugh right on old Apollo Creed's chin. And now we've got war. Now it's all in. And so we'll come back here and be looking at what's going to be the repercussions to these two battles. And we're going to have we're going to have one big battle for the colonists, and then we're going to go through about 2 years where it's awful tight for the colonies to hang in there, because they're going to get beat and pounded on pretty good. So hang in there, and those are slides 25 through 45.